Monsters at Work episode 8 is one of the more adventurous and story-central episodes of the season, and that's remarkable. I really dig what this episode tried to do, but then the episode ends and... wait, what? Hi fellow Disney Plus watchers, this is Thoughts After a Disney Plus Watch, where we review everything new Disney Plus coming out, and I'm glad you are watching. This is the channel that's specifically about movies, shows, and all that's Disney Plus original stuff. So just fair warning here before we start, I do want to discuss spoilers to really do this episode justice, so you can press that watch later button if you haven't seen it yet. Still here? Let's go already. This 8th episode is called Little Monsters, and for good reason, because it is Mini Monster Day at Monsters Incorporated, and what that basically is a take your son or daughter to work day. But what's different here is that all these kids coming into Monsters Incorporated are divided into groups. Some will join the jokesters, some will join the janitors, and some will join the mifters. And as expected, we follow the mift group this episode and all the kids that are assigned to them. I like that all the monsters and their partners are a little bit similar to each other, because that works in humorous ways throughout the episode. Like the kid under Duncan's supervision is just the same type of character. I love the scene where Duncan warns the kid that he better not be after Fritz's job as his replacement. Duncan, dude, he's a kid, and asks him to sign his contract, just as we remembered from episode 4 between Duncan and Tyler, harking back to that. And the kid just grabbing his own contract, demanding to be free from all liability from his actions. That is called being a kid. But I thought this was a really fun joke within this episode. Also, Fritz's kid looking like him, like having the same nose, was a nice resemblance. But what I particularly liked about it, this character, was that she wasn't much of a talker and was actually pretty intimidated by Fritz. And yes, she should be. Fritz is such a weird goofball that is just saying whatever he wants and just starts singing whenever that's least appropriate. Yeah, I felt for her. Fritz hasn't been this annoying and lame in this show since the first 2 episodes. And I love that we got this little character that is also on our side, that just completely hates Fritz for who he is, and she should be. The kids were quite nice companions for all the Mift characters during this episode. Some were counterparts, some were lookalikes, some were soulmates in case of Val and her assigned kid. But what I loved most about this episode was the banter between Tyler and Mrs. Flint's daughter Talia. What she's supposed to represent is Tyler's change of direction within this show. She's the perfect character to inspire Tyler to have an honest look at himself and see what he's good at. He's good for others, he's quick to react whenever crisis is happening, and he's a strong member of the Mift family. I liked it so much that we see her on this journey with Tyler, saving this kid that Needleman and Smitty lost. Our goal is to try to never do it again. And we see her looking in awe of the heroism at display. Tyler's truly got a big heart and is quick to react. She recognizes that he's in his element working at Mift. Also, at the end of the episode, we see her inspired by his honesty after Tyler admits that he picked her just as his partner to prove to her that he's funny, and she just ends with respect. She respects Tyler for who he is, despite knowing and admitting you're not funny. And if this episode ended on that note, that Tyler now kind of accepts that he is not the person he tries to be or wants to be, he needs to embrace the person he actually is, and that is a good-hearted Mifter, and he should be proud. If this episode ended on that note, and it looks like it does until the very end, then I would have declared this episode the most essential episode to date, and maybe even the best episode for that matter. The story is perfectly set up at the beginning, where Tyler is working on his last chance to become a jokester, giving everything in his power to convince Miss Flint that he's got some humor in him. But nope, fake out, gotcha. The episode ends with Talia admitting to her mother she had a great day, despite the fact that she didn't want anything to do with Mini Monster Day beforehand, which is great. It says something about the Mift team and about Tyler, how much they inspired Talia, and yada yada. So far so good. But this was the final dialogue. Talia saying, yeah, Tyler was really... and her mother filling in, painfully devoid of comedy, and Talia saying, no, funny. Wait, what? No, you can't do that. Maybe I'm overreacting, but this final dialogue completely flushes the whole purpose of this episode through the toilet. I thought that the whole point of this show is Tyler going on a journey, wanting to be a scarer, but essentially finding out the Mifters is where I belong. You know, a classic want versus need story. But no, it changes the narrative at the last second. What the hell, what are you doing? And to come back to what I said last week about episode 7, you know, maybe this episode should have been swapped with the previous one. Now that we got this ending, and Tyler is still in the running for being a jokester, it seems. Then the big moment where Tyler decides to abandon his chance of doing jokester work to rescue Adorable from the banishment door could have more weight, because that would have been his last chance Miss Flint gives him. I think you get the point. This episode had meaning, and it was beautiful that it used a kid to make Tyler see his true purpose. You know, there's something about kids and how they're viewing the world and others around them without any filtering. Talia recognized something in Tyler that he didn't accept yet, and that's very sweet. But you know what? Yeah, why not? Reverse that at the very last second, absolutely waste your narrative in the last minute. What the hell? Overall, I enjoyed the adventurous tone of this episode and the big chase, retrieving the lost kid and all. Very fun. There was once again some nice humor sprinkled throughout, and especially Duncan and his kid got a laugh out of me. Tyler's got some great character growth in this episode, and I know that is not completely lost, but the purpose of this episode in and of itself is, and that is greatly disappointing. By the way, are you giving Val the smaller half of the donut? You jerk. All things considered, it's a bad episode for me for completely dropping the narrative at the last second. I completely understand if you think I'm overreacting, but these kinds of fake outs really bother me, so it sours everything about this episode somewhat. So not a terrible episode, but a complete misfire, if you ask me. I'm thinking about wrapping this up. Thank you so much for watching. I'm curious, what did you think of this episode? Be sure to let me know in the comment section. Don't forget, if you enjoy the idea of discussing Disney Plus content with us, that red button looks familiar, right? And if you're interested in thoughts on previous episodes, it's all in the description, or you can browse the channel page. Did you like this video? Then be sure to consider giving that a click. Thanks. For now, have a wonderful day, and see ya.